Timmy Joe reviews anything.
Reviewing computer parts on YouTube.
That's fine.
Gotta be pumped on that, right, Will? Computer parts! Woo!
Oh yeah.
What's up, people? My name's Timmy Joe. I make these videos you want to watch all about computers up here on the series of tubes. And today on the program, we're testing that age-old question: is Crossfire a valid option with RX 580s here in 2018, nearly 2019, especially on the wake of an RX 590 launch? Well, yes, but before we do that, today we're going to talk about our sponsor, Timmy Joe T-shirts. That's right, I've got a whole bunch of T-shirts that you can go buy through Redbubble.com. They give me a little kickback, and they're lots of fun. There's the Internet is a Series of Tubes, there's classic Timmy Joe T-shirt, and there's, the Stop Staring at My GPUs, which is actually the one that sold the most, so that's lots of fun. So yes, go buy one on Redbubble, blah, blah, blah. So I've got RX 580s in Crossfire in this PC beside me with the latest generation Intel processor, so it should be pretty dang good, right? Well, that's what we're going to answer here today. So we got Firestrike running, as I like to do, live in the video so you can see some performance. But we're going to start with extreme reasons why you shouldn't do this, okay? Number one, your case sucks. Number two, your motherboard sucks. Number three, you don't already have an RX 580, okay? If you have any of those problems, there's no reason to buy two of these. You know, maybe if you get them really, really cheap, sure. But you have to check some things to make sure, because if you're slotting on your motherboard, maybe it's a little bit older, doesn't allow for a nice little, spot between the graphics cards, you're going to heat soak the top one, which is the main one, and it's going to make things ruined. Here it's ramping up now pretty good, even with the case open and three, intake fans on this. Number two, if your case doesn't allow for proper airflow for this, you're just silly to even attempt it. And if you don't already have an RX 580, adding another one, in your shopping list, you might as well just buy a better video card. Now, what's cool about RX 580s and why I have two of them right now is mining took a shit, and you can get RX 580s for around $200 USD, probably even cheaper than that used. So this is like a $400 solution, but then you're in Vega 56 territory. If you really, really like AMD, maybe you got a FreeSync monitor, you gotta really ask yourself, is it worth all the trouble? And the games that absolutely do not work with Crossfire, well, we'll answer that in just a second. So, Iceman's finished fighting the fire guy, and we're gonna check out what kind of performance we got from this biatch. 21 to 67 with a 6-core 9600K. But that graphics score is what I'm interested in. It's nearly 30,000. That's a very high number. That's 1080 Ti territory. That's better than Vega 64, as we'll check out right now. 1080 Ti gets a 31. This is an overclocked one on a 7740X, so a very similar processor, overclocked probably to more than 5 gigahertz, and it's getting a 31,089. So it's getting pretty close to 1080 Ti performance. Which sounds lovely, right? Yeah, we'll talk about it in just a second. So what other video cards can we compare this to? Well, let's say you want to go AMD and you want to go Vega 64. Well, I've tested one of those before. Vega 64, now this is on a Ryzen 1700, so it's probably got a little bit lower of a graphics score than it would on an Intel. But let's say max 24,000. So two of these beat a Vega 64 in synthetic testing, not real world testing. So, it seems pretty damn good. It seems compelling, actually. But we'll get to some benchmarks in a second. And then I did the R9 295X2 recently, and on the Ryzen 2700X, we see that it only got a score of 24,000. So this is beating the dual GPU, one of the last dual GPU solutions from AMD. So that's pretty cool. It actually does fairly well. It's not so bad. So let's say you got an RX 580, you see a cheap one on there, your motherboard supports it, you check out your case, it's going to fit in there just fine. Where can you go to make sure that the games you play actually work with Crossfire? Well, there is a slide from AMD that I forgot was there. I don't even know why I put that in there, just that I thought it was fun that there was a, this was when they first changed the Crossfire so that you don't have to use a bridge. Just in case you're wondering, you don't need a bridge for R9 290s and beyond for Crossfire. So keep that in mind. You know, that's a thing. But and I wonder if the support is actually as good as SLI with a bridge. You know, they say it's the same, but I swear I've done an NVIDIA SLI setup recently that was a little bit better for frame times than this, so keep that in mind. But yeah, there's a fandom website where they actually have like a real good outline of all the games that support Crossfire. I'll leave a link in the description below, but you can come here and just, you know, Google it, basically, and check out and see if the games you play actually support it, because there's a ton of them that don't. Doom, Fortnite does not support Crossfire. A lot of people play that. You know, there's actually some. Do you even want to be using dual GPUs for online play like that? Probably not. But yeah, there's a website. I'll put it in the description just in case you're thinking about this, because I think this is going to pop up. You know, more often than not, people are going to start looking into this because such an influx of RX 580s has been put into the market, and they're getting pretty cheap. So maybe it is worth it for you. I don't know. Maybe you got a really, really good deal on it. And the worst case scenario with this is you can just sell the extra one if, you know, it doesn't meet your fancy, which is pretty cool. And, you know, if you want to sell your RX 580 you have and buy a better GPU, you're not getting top dollar for it right now. So this might seem kind of compelling. So, yeah, that's the version I have right now. And I would say this is the absolute best scenario for Crossfire. I've got two of the best RX 580s you can buy. I've got the latest Intel platform. Yeah, it's on a 9900K, but the 9600K is going to max out, you know, these GPUs pretty nicely. You know, it's 6 cores at 5 gigahertz, 16 gigs of 3600 megahertz RAM. This should be the best absolute case scenario for Crossfire, and as we'll see in a second, it still sucks, kind of. Anyways, so yeah, we'll just get to the benchmarks, and then you can decide for yourself. And you'll notice that there aren't as many games as I usually benchmark here, because a couple of them I had to scrape the barrel for ones that actually worked with, that I have in my test suite with Crossfire. So cue up the benchmarks, Timmy Joe, and when we come back, I'll give you my final conclusion. Woo! 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 right, Billy, we're back from the benchmarks, and holy bad frame times, huh, Batman? Yeah, it's not very good. Most games actually scaled pretty good, but the frame time scaled really bad. You know, in the single digits. And I thought that it would be much better by now with this high-end Intel platform. I've got a Z390 motherboard here. I've got really, really fast RAM. I've got the best RX 580s you can buy. I was hoping to see like 20 you know, the 0.01% lows in the 20s at worst, and it was in the single digits in a lot of titles. And it just kind of made me sad, because then it's really hard to recommend it. And Doom's missing. I couldn't get Rainbow Six Siege for some reason to work with this, which would be, you know, a nice title to get some extra performance on, you know, competitive gameplay and stuff like that. You know, there's just a lot of games that just straight up don't work with this, like Fortnite. That's the most popular game right now, doesn't support Crossfire. Now, you can get max settings on an RX 580, you know, at 1080p, no problem. And I actually don't even touch higher resolution gaming in this video because I wanted to show, like, you know, I wanted to show the really, really high frame rates. But this would be a good solution if you have a 4K monitor to maybe, you know, you have a RX 480, you want to see some higher frame rates in some, you know, single player games where you're not worried about it stuttering here and there. But a lot of stuttering there was, which made me kind of sad. I was hoping to maybe recommend this because there are a lot of RX 580s out there right now, and if you can just plop another one in your computer and get 1080 Ti-like performance in, you know, let's say more than half the games out there, that's a pretty compelling argument. But I can't recommend it still. Because I have the best case scenario here, and it's still dipped below 10 frames per second in the 0.01% lows or whatever, which kind of sucks. So don't buy it unless you like to tinker and maybe you already have an RX 580, you come up on one in a deal. You can mess around with it. It's kind of fun. It's also really fun to just like fly with synthetic benchmarks on two budget graphics cards essentially. It's interesting, but I'm at Watch Timmy Joe, Instagram and Twitter. Maybe you want to buy a shirt. They're available through Redbubble. Links in the description below. As well as I have a Patreon. Patreon helps me, you know, with the old paying the bills and whatnot. And we've had a few extra people add lately. I'll sing happy birthday to you on your birthday live on a video. If you're a Patreon member, you just have to let me know that it's your birthday. You know, stuff like that. So that's always fun. But, you know, we have basically a pretty cool little system in a deep cool. I'll be reviewing this case soon if that, you know, tickles your fancy. But I'm not going to keep the Crossfire RX 580s. This second one's worth too much to me to put in a system and sell. And, you know, it's not really worth it for me to keep in my system. It's not helping video editing performance or anything like that. And the gaming performance is lackluster at best when you know, account for the frame times. That was really, really disappointing. But more Crossfire coming up soon because a few people have noticed in the background a few of my videos, and you would know if you were a Patreon subscriber because on Patreon I've been updating some cool behind-the-scenes action, but I've got this to test. I think this is going to be really, really, really fun. HG 6990, look forward to that coming up, dual GPU solution. But I guess it's time to end the video, and my final summation on the old Crossfire is that it hasn't advanced itself in several years, and you still have bad frame time performance. So unless you're getting the second video card on a real deal or you like to tinker, it's not worth it in the end, right? I'll see you guys later. Thanks very much for watching. I'm at Watch Timmy Joe, Instagram and Twitter. You guys have yourselves a crossfire-y, banging kind of day.